Hello. Recently, I finished Endwalker, and it is kind of crazy how much content unlocks. I've done some new stuff, like I grinded out the new variant dungeon in a single day. There was one version of a boss that I just wiped to on my own over and over for like an hour, but it was fun. I also grinded out Island Sanctuary, which has been really cozy. Obviously, it's never going to be a full-on Stardew Valley experience, but I think within the context of Final Fantasy XIV, they did a great job. But this isn't about that. This is about the true endgame. Move over Dawn Trail, move over Glam. Everyone knows that the real endgame is crafting and gathering, I think. And after finishing 6.0, I was shocked to see a quest from one Naming Way in Old Charlian. Yes, finishing 6.0 gives you access to cosmic exploration. I slurped up those quests like a feral animal. They are written with such a clear love for world building, and I recommend everyone go through them just to experience the story. You don't actually need to participate in the crafting. One of my favorite games is Outer Wilds, and I thought Ultima Thule had some pretty clear visual references to that, but I also love Subnautica, and without getting into spoilers for any of these games, I'll just say that I am super excited for the next stage of cosmic exploration. There's just one small problem. I became a crafter back when I was still on the free trial in A Realm Reborn, and I was busy thinking about club classics. No retainers, no market board, and every level 50 quest besides Weaver and Culinarian requires you to meld crafted gear with a specific piece of materia. On the free trial, you need to grind out Spirit Bond while wearing specific gear and just hope that you can extract the type of materia that you need. Or you can go to this guy and throw a bunch of materia into a pot and hope something useful comes out. Needing a Piety 3 materia is actually how I picked up Conjurer, which led to me becoming a healer main. These quests burnt me out pretty bad, but I did continue crafting. If you're a crafter, you might know that the ability Manipulation comes from job quests, specifically the Stormblood job quest, and it restores some durability to your crafting material with each step, and you can combine it with Waste Not, which functionally gives you a bunch of free steps where you don't have to worry about durability. If your craft ever reaches 0 durability and it's not complete, it will break and you will lose all of your crafting ingredients. So Manipulation is really good. I only have Manipulation on Alchemist because, shout out Natsuko Ishikawa, the story has been surprisingly compelling from the beginning in those quests. But on every other job, I've been doing these cosmic missions and I am fucking fighting for my life out there. Not having Manipulation turns it into savage content. Very often, a mission success will depend entirely on a coin flip. Enter Rapid Synthesis, an ability that costs nothing, and this is what you turn to when you're battered and you're bruised and you have nothing left. And sometimes it fucking works. It works and it finishes your craft, your wounds are healed, your depression is gone, but Rapid Synthesis is no way to live. My problem is that I don't really skip dialogue. I like knowing what every quest is about, and I like to do a full expansion of quests in one go. I've actually done all of the Crystarium role quests and my Skysteel relics too. I just know that some of these older quests are going to be tedious, and I've gotten by without Manipulation for now, but with a new Cosmic Zone on the horizon, I can't live like this anymore. We are going to do all of my crafting job quests right now for content. And then we'll do a tier list because this is YouTube or whatever. Okay, let's go. First of all, I'm just going to craft everything that I need. Thankfully, and I totally forgot about this, in Stormblood, you don't actually need to prepare your crafts. They give you the ingredients and you just need to have the crystals, basically. So that's good. That is going to make this a lot less painful. But I am going to prepare all of these Heavensward crafts just so that they're they're done. They shouldn't be too bad. I'm kind of a cheapskate, so I'm not going to buy anything. I'm probably going to do some gathering and stuff, so hold tight. Okay, well, I intended to record that, but then I forgot to press record. Make this bigger. So these are the fruits of my labor. I went through my retainers, through my free company chest, and I had pretty much everything. There were a couple things I needed to gather, a couple things that I had to buy here in Idleshire, like scale glue. But yeah, it took me about an hour, and that's the disgusting part done, and now I just have to actually do the quests. We can start with a recap of Alchemist, since I've done these quests already. The guildmaster here is Severian, who is this classic genius scientist who looks down on everyone. We earn his favor by doing various tasks for him so that he could focus on his personal research. He grows more and more tired and distracted until we get caught out supplying dangerous potions to a gang. The cop who questions us turns out to be the younger sister of Wanaja, who was Severian's one and only love, who died in the calamity. Having gained his trust now as a fellow alchemist, we finally learn that his personal research is necromancy. He wants to bring Wanaja back from the dead. We recreate her conjurer wand in perfect image, and with this personal effect, Severian is able to bring her back for just long enough to tell her what he needs to and find peace. And he even entrusts her younger sister with the wand to remember her by. He's a total psycho, but I kinda love him. The Heavensward quests introduce a couple new characters, but ultimately it's a murder mystery about people who appear to have been kidnapped and robbed of their ability to speak. They turn out to be the clones of people killed by a master alchemist who got his hands on elegant tech and wanted to use it to live forever. The lighting in this cutscene might have evaded the Dawn Trail graphical update, but the killer doesn't evade us. Stormblood brings us to another mystery of the Enchanted Blade Heartstrike, which might have worked in the past, but now it is simply a cursed blade that is leaving bodies of the dead in suspended animation. This connects us to a similar case with Philomene and her love, Nilfren, who was cut down with this blade and whose ether can never return to the star. There actually used to be a tiny bit of this story in A Realm Reborn, but it was cut out of the patches in The Great Purge. We track down the blade, dissolve it with alchemy, and Nilfren returns to the star. And Severian, of all people, reminds us that carrying on in the face of loss is part of what it means to be alive. I wouldn't think of these quests as like my favorite quests ever, but among the crafter quests, they are very memorable, and I do love murder mysteries, so we're going to set Alchemist as the standard for S tier. The Carpenter quests introduce us to Timbermaster Beaton, who loves wood more than any other man in Eorzea. We make some lumber, we make various wood stuff, and as we're moving on up in the guild, we're commissioned to make a cane by Captain Gerhard of the Twin Adders. One of the conjurers in his unit is just a complete racist and doesn't like him because he's Alamegan, but we win her over because she really likes the cane, I guess, and it makes her realize that outsiders ain't so bad after all. Gerhard commissions us again, and Beaton assumes that this next order is for Gerhard himself, but it's actually for someone in his unit, and Beaton learns that Gerhard has been using a crappy bow that he made for him years ago when he was just a baby carpenter. He really wants to replace it, but Gerhard refuses, and they end up having a huge fight about it. The next thing we hear, Gerhard's shitty old bow is found destroyed in Ixtal territory. Beaton is super upset. He trashed the workshop when he found out. So to comfort him, we make him some beautiful rosewood lumber. He urges us to make Gerhard's new bow and hurry to the North Shroud, telling us that we're his only hope. Thank the 12, Gerhard is alive, and he admits that the old bow was on its last legs and he shouldn't have been so stubborn. And the new bow is awesome. Gerhard is happy, Beaton is happy, and yeah, the Realm Reborn quests were actually great. I just loved how much these quests felt like a romance drama. The Twin Adder Command and the Carpenter's Guild are very close. They're separated by just a short bridge. But these men don't reconnect for a long way into the quest line, and you're just running back and forth between them while they make wistful comments about each other. So I'm interested to see if they continue that thread at all. Let's go. To start us off, Beaton gives us a broken spear and tells us to go find the owner in Ishgard. We find out that it belonged to the father of a soldier named Bartholomew. Barto doesn't respect his father and believes that he died a coward's death. As a single father now himself, he wants to become a knight to support his son, but he needs a proper weapon, and that's where we help out. Barto aims to slay a notorious dragon whose scales are said to be impenetrable. After one of his failed attempts, he finds the missing tip of his father's spear at the scene, which can only mean that his father hunted this same dragon. He pierced past its scales, and he actually died a knight's death. The dragon took flight, and the spear shaft fell in the shroud, which is how it ended up in Beaton's hands. With help from his son, the memory of his father, and us, Barto finishes the job and slays the dragon, which will earn him and his son a better life under Ishgard's terrible class system. For the very first time, they go and pay their respects to Barto's father at his gravesite in the Curthis Western Highlands. This story was alright.
Fine, die, see if I care.
Stormblood sets us up as the mentor for a less experienced carpenter in the guild named Chemi Jinjal. We find her freaking out near a woodpile because guild finances are not good and Beaton hasn't been eating or sleeping. As we brainstorm how to bring more money in, we learn that Far Eastern furniture is en vogue at the moment in Gridania, so we travel to Kugane to study their techniques and volunteer our services. These quests are nice because we help different people in unique ways, all with an undercurrent of Chemi struggling herself with an inability to fulfill these customers' needs. No matter how much her woodworking improves, we always need to step in for her and craft something that truly suits the client. Oh, and Beaton jump scares us a few times and provides a lot of support too. When we all return to Gridania, Beaton is swarmed by regular customers, and Chemi wonders aloud what makes him so popular. One of the customers tells her that Beaton always crafts something for you and you alone. Chemi realizes that she's been so insecure about her woodworking skill that she forgot along the way why she was drawn to this profession in the first place. When she was young, her family couldn't afford much furniture, and she made an armchair for her mother to rest after a long day of work, and that was fulfilling. Chemi finally reconnects to that part of herself, and you just know that she's gonna be okay. Of course, the writers would never leave us in the lurch, and Gerhard returns to the guild, no middlemen this time, but with a familiar problem. With an influx of refugees from Alamigo, there is once again racial tension among his ranks. Together with Chemi, we craft some Far Eastern tea benches, and everyone gathers under the parasols to enjoy tea and dango. The presence of a sort of neutral outside culture allows the tension among his unit to diffuse more easily. Also, Beaton tells Chemi that there are no financial issues within the guild at all. He just stopped eating because he was RPing as a tree.
You probably shouldn't laugh anymore.
The Heavensward quests were all right, but I really didn't expect how nice the Stormblood ones would be. I was smiling so much. With that weaker midpoint, these quests are probably A tier, but then they get the gay buff, and also my house has been known to look like this, so Carpenter is S tier. Speaking of gay, shout out to the couple that was inspecting the floorboards the whole time. I love you. The Blacksmith quests tend to blend with the Armorer quests because both guilds are in the same location and require you to make very similar items. These quests also get the Limsa debuff where the NPCs have more apostrophes in their dialogue than actual personality. Most of them involve working to get more contracts for the guild, and the interest or conflict is that the guildmaster has to work with a guy that he doesn't like. In the last quest, there's a cameo from Arenvald's friend Jamaldva, and that's like the only thing of interest that ever happens. I didn't hate these quests, but they were really dull, so let's see what Berthail has to say now. Heavensward brings us to Frémondin, the last remaining servant of House Jarin, who watches over his departed lord's daughter, Loris. Larisse is a tiny thing that brawls like a bear, and she aims to win the upcoming grand tourney to restore her house's honor and carry on her father's legacy. Her father, you see, was stripped of his knighthood when he took food from the wealthy to give to the poor. That's why she's poor now. To have a shot at the tourney, she needs a good blacksmith, and we restore her family's ancestral blade integrity. She fails to win the tourney, but her courage nonetheless wins her accolades and apprentice squirehood in the Temple Knights. These quests are just okay. I appreciated the bit of comedy from the butler. Stormblood introduces us to Sekka, an aspiring swordsmith from Kugane. The moment she steps off the boat, a strange man tries to assault her. She pulls out a katana to defend herself, and a cop detains her. Something tells me I'm not going to like these quests. Sekka doesn't intend to become a permanent member of the guild, so Berthail asks her for a cultural exchange, with each side sharing their smithing techniques. They are constantly at each other's throats, and Berthail hopes that she will simply leave out of frustration. Sometime later, a master swordsmith visits from Hingashi, and he's revealed to be none other than Sekka's father, who owns the greatest forge in Kugane. He refuses to support her dream and showers her with so much verbal abuse that Berthail steps in to defend her. This is a sweet moment, and when we see Sekka again, she talks about how her heart races when Berthail is near. Sekka's father agrees to take her on as an apprentice at his forge if she can win in a contest against us. In the end, our blade is superior, but her father acknowledges that her blades are no longer being made with anxiety in her heart, and he deems her worthy of an apprenticeship. Sekka confesses her love for Berthail, who panics and runs when her father basically grabs a shotgun. I really didn't like these quests. The humor was off-putting, especially as a woman, but I don't think you even need to be a woman to see that the vibes are off with this one. The earlier quests were all right, though, so we'll put Blacksmith in C. The Armorer quests involve us helping various struggling novices in the guild, which introduces us to Blansteer, a veteran armorer at odds with the guildmaster, Hananza. He spends his time criticizing little baby guild members out of their dreams of becoming armorers. I have no patience for people like that. Hananza doesn't want to create drama in the guild, though, so she encourages us to prove our worth to Blansteer, so we might be able to make peace. She believes in community and sharing knowledge and growth, while Blansteer believes in excellence and has made himself unlikable and isolated. He ends up becoming our bitter and pathetic rival, just as he was to Hananza in the past, and I'm not excited to see that he seems to be involved in the Heavensward quests too, but let's go, I guess. Blansteer has decided that endangering his life is the only way to improve his armor craft, and so he goes out into the dangerous wilds of Lenosha. Hananza asks us to follow and protect him because we already know from the last expansion that his armor is trash. Before we catch up to him, some other adventurers save his life, and they become our pro bono clients for the rest of Heavensward. This group has some interpersonal issues of their own. Have you ever been a healer in a dungeon and wondered why your party's melting, only to examine their gear and immediately understand why? That is this healer. Their melee DPS is basically a nudist, so the healer commissions us for some barely there head protection. Blansteer can only conceive of like a full coverage helm, and so he rejects this commission as impossible. Hananza steps in and encourages us to visit Geva and Beaton in Gridania, who both acknowledge my status in their own guilds, which was a really cute touch. After speaking with them, we decide to make a thin titanium face mask, and the little nudist loves it. Blansteer can't believe it, and it's frustrating how long it takes him to experience real growth in this story. A bullheaded character who gets in their own way is difficult to make interesting, and Hananza always ends up giving us the real quest as it is, so Blansteer ends up feeling like just a source of tedious extra dialogue. Near the end of the quest chain, he finally sucks it up for real and begins studying under Hananza, which leaves us to fulfill the requests of the adventurer group. They just had a blowout argument, but the tank was just upset that the healer was taking such good care of everyone else without thinking of himself too. We make sure the whole team has some fresh gear, and it's a really nice little story. I liked going around to guilds in the other city-states. I think it would be annoying if every job quest in Heavensward did that, but it ended up being unique to Armorer, and it was really lovely. I like the idea of Armorcraft being a discipline that can draw upon so many others. Stormblood naturally takes us to Kugane. Blandsteer feels that his armorcraft lacks character, and so he takes leave from the guild to study in the Far East. Hananza worries like a mother hen as usual, so we go check on him and end up getting roped into an apprenticeship ourselves. There's not too much going on in these quests. There's a brief moment where Blandsteer stumbles and his pride takes over, but with his newfound humility and desire to grow, he recovers from this quickly. Together, we fashion a suit of armor for a samurai that blends Laminson and Hinken techniques, and this might be one of the craziest glams I've ever seen. Overall, the quests improved a lot after A Realm Reborn, even if they weren't super interesting, so I think that Armorer can go in B tier. The Goldsmith Guildmaster is Serendipity, who is technically a teenager. She's like 19. She has a sassy mammoth sidekick named Gigi, who basically only exists to tell us that our work is bad. Our first real commission is for a Sultan sworn cop named Robert, who Serendipity clearly has a crush on. For some reason, Gigi starts sexually harassing Serendipity and tells her that her ass and boobs are too flat, which is just played off as like a weird joke. And Serendipity acts like a floozy who like only cares about Robert. Like, girl, you're the head of a guild. What the fuck? The remainder of the quests are about a dude who was plotting to rob people at the Sultana's birthday gala. The thief is revealed to be none other than Robert. Gigi dies amid all of this, but is brought back to life when we force him to inspect our latest craft because his strong urge to criticize us restores his mental faculties. These quests are pretty bad. Let's see whether the Heavensward and Stormblood ones can pull Goldsmith out of F tier. Unfortunately, we do still have to deal with Serendipity and Gigi for the Heavensward quests, but the main quest giver is Marcel from Ashtam's Aesthetics. This guy has zero personality apart from being rude to us before he realizes what a skilled goldsmith we are. Same old story. The character writing is as poor as ever, and the entire chain is dedicated to work for a single customer. Well, two, actually. A wife requests an anniversary gift for her husband, and then the husband requests the exact same thing. This would have been a fun and romantic coincidence if the husband and wife had truly asked for the exact same item, a music box. But the wife actually couldn't come up with anything. It was Marcel who came up with the idea. So it's more of a coincidence between Marcel and the husband, and the coincidence falls a little flat. The final scene is quite nice though. The music boxes look beautiful together. I love the Maker's Rune melody. The original was composed for Philomene, then the songstress of Ulda, and this couple met at one of her concerts back in the day. There's a reference to Neil Fren as well, since he was a goldsmith, and I'm curious what the song would sound like with Philomene singing. Like, what would the lyrics be? Anyway, at least there was minimal Gigi in these quests. Stormblood takes us blessedly far away because Nanamo wants to help establish a trade school in Relger's Reach. The school is named Crown Gemworks in honor of Nanamo, who gifted her own mother's crown that the jewels might be repurposed for the future of Alamigo. The students are Jakebika, who has tinkered a little bit in a jewelry shop before, and the brothers Guido and Hal, the former who has skill with metalworking and the latter who has more experience with mining. Jakebika is the most skilled among them, but she needs new glasses, so we make them. Not much really happens besides us demonstrating our skills for the students, who then want to thank the Sultana for her support. We snoop around and decide on making a compact orchestrion for her bedroom that is inlaid with gems from her mother's crown. She loves it. The trade school was a promising premise, but the writing quality just was not there, unfortunately. Like, bringing in an Ananta character was cool because we see their skills with precious metals in their society quests. You might be wondering what I'm talking about, because I didn't even mention Kanchana in the summary, and that's because she doesn't really do anything. She has a bit of dialogue early on, and then she just stands nearby in case we need crafting materials, and that's a real shame. Jakebika was such a terrible character, but she might have been the victim of localization. It seems like her dialogue is written deliberately in run-on sentences, making each sentence very difficult to read. A skilled writer can give you the sense of an accent or culture or the hyperactivity of a character without making the dialogue feel tedious. Unfortunately, the localization team rarely does this. There were some other very, very, very granular details that just bothered me. Things that just spoke to a lack of care. Like, when they were making the orchestrion, everyone had their own part, like Hal did all the inlaid gems because that's his background. And then Guido, who's the metal guy, makes the exterior case, but it's fucking wood. It's not unheard of to incorporate one crafting discipline into another, but he's the metal guy. Like, I just think whoever wrote these quests didn't give a fuck. I've got smoke for my own damn character too, because what the hell is this ring? I have made a lapis lazuli ring in real life. It was the first ring that I ever made, and it looked like this. What the hell is this shit? You're a level 100 Goldsmith? God, these quests were so terrible. I think they're just gonna stay in F tier. Like, the Stormblood ones weren't that bad, but overall, just, like, fuck them. I think this is really the worst dialogue that I've read in 4 expansions of this game. What the hell? As leatherworkers, we work under Geva, and the guild is sort of the flagship of Fenial Fineries, which is like the Hermes of Eorzea. Except the products look like shit. When you search for a leather choker and only find this, you will understand why some people use mods. The central conflict in the Leatherworker quests is the emergence of a fast fashion brand, Anchor Botha, that is sullying the good name of Gradanian high fashion. A bunch of Geva's leatherworkers have defected to go and work for them, probably because she sounds like a terrible boss. In the end, the guy behind the brand gets arrested for counterfeiting, and all's well that ends well. We have preserved the good brand name of Hermes. Okay, let's check out the Heavensward quests. Okay, this is a first for me. I did the Heavensward quests for Leatherworker and just completely forgot. That is not a good sign, but I'll try to summarize it really quickly. We were sent to Ishgard to meet with a merchant who wanted to sample the Fenial brand. Geva didn't want to export a large order, but that ended up being fine because the merchant recruited us as an advisor to develop her own brand. She built up a successful brand with our help and promised to name the brand after us. These quests were at least inoffensive, but clearly not very memorable either. Anyway, in Stormblood, we are taken on by a naturalist named Atalun. She explains that the changes wrought by the calamity far outpace the ability of animals to adapt. Her solution is education through taxidermy. This is very ghoulish to me personally, but educating the public is a very important part of science, and she only uses animals who have already died, at least. Unfortunately, her character is yet another genius who looks down on everyone. She refers to us as number 72, as in the 72nd person to serve her. Number 71 is a literal child who carries out the taxidermy mounts for her. Conflict arises when a man from the Conjurers Guild confronts us about our mounted Dalmel, claiming that it is an affront to the elementals. He's literally like, child labor I can excuse, but taxidermy is too far. Atalun gives a public lecture on endangered species outside the Twelves Wood, which puts the man and other doubters in their place. Many of them rely on imported animal goods that they know little about due to the insular nature of Gridania. In the end, she even thanks us and the small child and calls us by our actual names. There was really nothing redeeming in any of these quests, but nor was there anything truly horrific, so we'll put Leatherworker in C tier. Redolent Rose is the master of the Weavers Guild. He doesn't play a very big role personally, but I do respect him as a fellow fashion critic. These quests have us making commissions for the miner Wawaruka, who has fallen in love with a rich girl named Kokomo, but he feels like he needs better fashion to court her. In the end, it turns out that Kokomo liked him all along, but hated that he kept coming to see her in the weird outfits that we made him, so be yourself. Heaven's Word has us traveling to Ishgard for commission work. We end up being recruited by a woman named Glenda to help her daughter Avriel improve her weaving. But Avriel's real dreams are to become a healer, and she often sneaks out to hang out with her conjurer friends and to see her sweetheart, Freskin, who is preparing to leave for war. It's a classic tank healer romance. There's a ton of conflict between Avriel and her mother, but when the lovers are ready to abscond into the night, Glenda appears and reveals that she too went to war as a healer to protect her lover, but Avriel's father died, and that's why she's been so unsupportive up to now. In the end, she chooses to support her daughter rather than continue to push her away, and we can only hope for the best for this couple. A Realm Reborn and Heaven's Word were both pretty decent stories, so let's see what Stormblood has to offer. Redolent Rose introduces us to K-May, a man who has recently taken over a family textile business and is now traveling the world to keep his finger on the pulse of fashion trends. The story takes a weird turn when we're invited to Kugane. K-May wants us to craft foreign clothing for his female travel companion. He explains that she will soon debut as a geiko and that he has been her patron since she was a child. I don't want this video to be heavy, so I won't get into any detail here at all, but the Maiko system has been referred to as modern-day slavery, despite a culture of silence that prevents women and girls from coming forward about their negative experiences. This story is not without merit, though, so I'm just gonna focus on Kotocho and just leave K-May out of the picture entirely. Kotocho is very taken with foreign fashion, and she becomes popular in the Flower District for performing in Western attire. Conflict arises when her mentor, an older geiko named Kototsuru, criticizes her dance skills and lack of traditional kimono. Kotocho acknowledges that Kototsuru is a skilled dancer and currently the reigning top geiko, but she dismisses her as old and jealous of her rising star. So Kototsuru throws down the gauntlet. Both of them will perform at an upcoming state banquet, and one of them will win the favor of the Bukyo. The lesser dancer must give up her geiko status and start over as an apprentice. Kotocho decides to perform in a Thavnarian bustier, and the audience is so titillated that she freezes up and can barely dance. Even worse, the foreign guests are from Thavnar, so they're not impressed at all. Kotocho regrets that she focused more on fashion than on her skills as a geiko. Kototsuru originally appears as a shrill villain who wants to snuff out this younger woman's flame, but in this scene, it's clear that she just doesn't want that flame to burn out. After this loss, Kotocho works her way back up to a second geiko debut, and we hear news that Kototsuru is going to get married and leave the Flower District. But Kotocho has always dreamt of dancing together with her mentor and rival, and with this news, she just loses her will to keep going. We go convince Kototsuru to put off her wedding for just a little longer, and she agrees, but she declares that both geiko will perform an ancient doman dance in identical traditional garb. Totally equal playing field. And it's lovely. I was so touched when they looked at each other after their dance. They have a very nice relationship. Kototsuru invites Kotocho to dance at her wedding. It's the best. These stories were pretty decent across all expansions, but I do want to drop Keimei into a volcano, and unlike this review, it's a lot harder to pretend that he doesn't exist while you're playing. So Weaver will go in B tier. The Culinarian quests for A Realm Reborn were so bad. You're basically covering for the failures of another guild member for a few quests, and then you're preparing for a banquet for Nanamo. I learned nothing. The quests were not good. And then in Heavensward, they kind of went crazy and turned everything into a cooking anime with overblown reactions to good food. The actual plot, I couldn't really tell you about, and I'm not even going to look it up because I just had a really good time and I'm excited for Stormblood. I just want to get into it. I would say that Culinarian right now, despite the weak showing in A Realm Reborn, is sitting at like a B, a strong B. All right, let's go. Stormblood introduces us to Rolf, a fellow adventurer who has taken up the Culinarian life and needs to find a way to stand out in Revenant's Toll. He settles on mastering Far Eastern cuisine to appeal to the many Doman refugees in the area. His first attempt is onigiri, but the Domans clearly hate it, while also being too polite to tell him what's wrong with the recipe. We collect feedback on his behalf and craft some Doman-approved onigiri. A woman named Anzu appears, and Rolf tells her that they shouldn't be seen together. Back in the privacy of the kitchen, Rolf tells us that Anzu is his fiancée, but he also tells us that things are complicated. Next, he wants to learn how to prepare dashi stock from dried fish because it's the basis for many dishes, including udon, which he intends to serve to the older domans in the area who have been struggling with greasy Eorzean food. We track down some dried fish from the Far East, and the elderly folks are super grateful to have been able to eat authentic udon again. Now, enter the complication. Anzu's father, who hurls insults at Rolf and refuses to accept him as a son-in-law. Rolf had hoped to win him over by giving up adventuring and dedicating himself to traditional Doman cuisine. Anzu's father owned his own restaurant back in Doma, and he doesn't care whether Rolf can make Anzu happy or even simply provide for her. The only hope seems to be winning him over by becoming really good at cooking. This is a disappointing complication because it echoes this tiresome thread throughout many of the crafter quests that people only have value if they're good at their craft. Next on the menu is sushi, which will require some proper training in Hingashi. The master chef turns out to be a ninja turtle who we meet under the sea and then harass into training us. After we pass on our training, Anzu's father once again insults Rolf's cooking, but notes that his sushi is not terrible for a chef with second-hand training. Rolf has a moment of hope, but Anzu's father dashes it. He says that he rejects Rolf not for his adventuring background, nor his poor cooking, but because he is not Doman. He claims that Far Eastern cuisine is superior because it is pure and unmarred by outside influences, which doesn't sit right with Rolf, nor should it sit right with anyone who knows anything about cooking. Rolf is devastated, but he has not given up on Anzu. He recalls a time when she made him sukiyaki, and he was hit with a wave of nostalgia for his childhood in Alamigo. He travels to Alagiri with memories of a hearty stew on his mind. We speak to a historian who denies any direct trade link between Alamigo and Hingashi, but he points us to a Hanish elder who might know more. This elder is a huge fan of this so-called buckler stew, and he confirms that the recipe certainly traveled from Alamigo to the Near East and Rajasthan to Doma. The best part is that we're like in the middle of nowhere and this elder and Rolf just sit their butts down and make it. Like, yes, we have cooking, we've got cultural exchange, learning from elders. Anzu's father is speechless when we serve him both sukiyaki and buckler stew, but he accepts that he was wrong and basically welcomes Rolf into the family. There's no way things would resolve this quickly in the real world, but, you know, Rolf is great and I'm happy for him. These quests didn't have the same overblown humor that I recall from Heavensward, but they were really nice, especially after a long day doing many quests that were not nice. I'm going to put the Culinarian story overall at a B. Actually, it gets a food buff. It's A tier. These are the final rankings. So, unlike with Glam, I don't get the impression that people have strong feelings about the craft requests either way, but who knows? Let me know if you feel personally wronged. I'm also genuinely interested in any thoughts that you have because I've spent way too much time thinking about these, and I think that I've already saturated my friends' DMs about it. Anyway, nice to finish another video. Take care, and if you're on Siren, I will see you in Oxesia. What do you think this little freak is? Like, do you think we're gonna meet it? Who is this?